So true. So true. Well, first of all, we always review where we've gone in the mythology thus far, right? I will say that there's been thought. We always think of it in threes, right? So there's been thought already given to the film we're doing, and usually 2 films beyond that. So anything that we're creating has to can't derail off of this kind of trilogy like preparation. For example, F9, when we're creating F9, we're thinking F9 and then 10.1, 10.2. So that's the first thing. So we're always looking ahead. We're also thinking about what various moments of spectacle we've given you already and how we can defy your expectations in the next one. And then after we're thinking about the action sequences, and we are thinking, and of course we're thinking story all the way along and the mythology all the way through, but we're also take a lot of time to think about the evolution of characters, because it's rare to have characters that are not pre-existing IPs, that have no comic books or no novels behind them, to have had this many episodic chapters in their franchise, in their saga. So yes, and then we, not to belabor the answer, but then we also think, what else don't you know about the characters that you've grown so familiar with over the past 2 decades? In delving into this chapter of fatherhood, as you can imagine, when one becomes a father, naturally, they reflect on their own father. They do it subconsciously or consciously in hopes to understand what their role will be as a father or how to be the best father they can be. When you go back into the franchise, if you go back to the very first film, the magical moment of that first film, or the character-defining moment of that first film, is when Dom Toretto is explaining why he's afraid, or he regards this Charger the way that he does to Brian O'Connor. And we discovered that there's something in the past, there's a story that we're not given a whole lot of time or a whole lot of explanation on, but we know that there's a story in his past that changed him. Who would think that 20 years later, 2 decades later, we would now explain that story, that critical moment in his life that changed who he was forever? And Fast 9 does that. It's an incredible question. As we know, I'm multicultural. You could have picked anyone to be my brother. You could have picked anyone. And if you know my twin brother in real life, you realize you could pick anyone to be my brother, let alone my twin brother. I'll tell you something, James. As we were developing the story, it was great fun to be able to return or revisit a past that predates the first film. Once we started getting into casting, that's where the anxiety set in. That's where it was like, oh my God, it could go any million places, 1,000 different directions. So there was an actual anxiety. There were so many great, talented actors, but who would be right to play that type of archetype, that archetype, that character that has to do so much in this film? Because it's a very intense role. All the while representing what our collective idea of a Toretto to be. I'm in my Dom shrine, getting ready, getting into that Dom state of mind 3 months before filming in California, before we went to London. And I had heard that, John Cena really wants to get a shot at this. It would be a dream, and all these wonderful words, and I had already been a fan of who he is and his work ethics, and maybe a week earlier I was watching Ferdinand with my kids, and it's just, we love John Cena. But he walks into my Dom shrine, and I was kind of in this Dom state of mind, so it wasn't too hee ha ha. He was walking into kind of a sacred place. And we talked about why this franchise is so sacred and what goes into it, and how if you come into this franchise, you have to be willing to put everything on the line. That day I posted on Instagram, without talking to anyone, a picture of him and me, or a video of him and me. And I said, "Thank you, Pablo." Because at that moment, I thought my brother Pablo had sent him to play Jacob. The shorthand that Justin and I have created over the years is invaluable. We spend so much time in pre-production before anyone gets a page, mapping out the mythology over multiple films. And when it came to, and he might not have known that he was going to have to come back 5 years ago when I told him. Mm-hmm. But I know that there's a responsibility to bring that epic and anticipated finale to the franchise, to this era of the franchise. That is that trilogy of 9 and the 2 parts in 10. That I couldn't have imagined anyone in the world. So I started plotting, even before the other films were made, to line that up so that he could do the finale with me of this era of the mythology. That theatrical experience that's like nothing else in the world, where you could see a movie that warrants a whole audience, all unified, cheering as one, engaged in the same story. That's the magic of Fast and Furious. And I got to, on a side note, I just got to say, I'm so proud of Universal for being so bold, because man, do we need it. And here it is, Fast 9, June 25th. Or, you have it a bunch of different places, but this summer, we're finally going to return to that theatrical experience, and this is going to be one that is going to be so special to share.
Thank you for watching. Head to sarahscoop.com for more of the scoop on your favorite things.